So now I'm looking at section 2.2, number 10. Evaluate this expression, and I'm tempted to use a calculator, except it says including any radicals. And my calculator is not going to give me radicals, it would only give me decimals. So I'm not supposed to be using the calculator. Well, then that tells me we're going to be using this triangle and or this triangle. And then to find out if the trig functions are supposed to be positive or negative, I'll use a smart trig class. Okay, so to begin with, sine of 210 degrees. So 210 degrees would mean start on the positive x-axis. If you go that far, that's 180 degrees. That means there's still another 30 degrees to go, because 210 minus 180 will be 30. So that leaves us this triangle right here. And I could make a triangle with the x-axis where this reference angle right here is 30 degrees. And that means that this is 60 degrees. And so the sides, so I use this. So across from 30 is a 1, across from 60 is a radical 3, and across from 90 is a 2. So across from 30 will be a 1, across from 60 is the square root of 3, and across from 90 is a 2. And then it said find sine. So sine of 30 degrees. So if I use the 30 degrees, sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So sine is going to equal opposite over hypotenuse. Then for sine of 210 degrees, it's going to equal the same number, but it could be positive or it could be negative. That's where a smart trig class comes in handy. And right now we're in the third quadrant. So that means tangent is positive and sine is negative. Okay, so that's for that part. Next, for cosine of 180 degrees. So that actually doesn't form a triangle, because 180 degrees would be over here. That's 180 degrees. And then if I try to draw a triangle, well, it has to include the x-axis like this. I had drawn this as the terminal side of the angle and then go perpendicular to the x-axis. Here, I can't do that. So instead, what I have to do is say, well, like this point right here is x equals a -1 and y equals a 0. And then you could use the formula that x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So -1 squared plus 0 squared equals r squared. This will be a +1 plus 0. And then take the square root, and r is equal to 1. So what about cosine? So what I'm doing now with the x, y, and r is I'm basically looking at the basic definition of sine, cosine, and tangent, except I'm using the letters x, y, and r for the sides of the triangle. So that means that cosine of theta, well, cosine, Oscar had a heap, so is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent would be x, hypotenuse would be r. So cosine of 180 degrees equals the x divided by the r. So x is -1 divided by 1. So cosine of 180 degrees equals -1. Now, I said I wasn't going to use a calculator, but I just want to see if I'm doing these right. So I'm not done yet, but I just want to check. So sine, oh, you could see I just did it as practice right before you got here. So sine of 210 degrees, that's negative a half. So this part is right. Then what about this part? Cosine of 180 equals -1, so that part's right. Okay, I just took a little break to adjust the color because it looks sort of dark. Okay, what about this one? Tangent of 45. So that's where I can use this triangle. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So it's 1 divided by 1. So tangent of 45 degrees equals 1 divided by 1. So that's just equal to 1. And now finally, evaluate this expression. So this one, oh, actually they're all going to get squared. So this first one is going to be sine of 210. So that's -1/2, and then it needs to be squared. -1/2 gets squared. And then minus, take the answer from cosine of 180 and square that. And then finally, plus the answer you got from tangent of 45, square that. So this, when you square it, will be 1/4. And then this will be minus. When you square a -1, that's a +1. And then plus another one. So these two are going to cancel. So the answer would be 1/4. And then it says to use fractions, so not decimals. So then the answer would be 1/4. Okay, then on to another one from that section. So section 2.2, number 12. So they want to know what are the coordinates for this point P right there. Type an ordered pair. So add an x and a y axis. So they're basically saying make this the x axis and this the y axis. And then what point is that? So it would have to be that x is negative and y is positive. But what are the actual numbers? So I'm going to rewrite it like this. Here's my x and y axis. And then instead of using the 135, I'm going to use the reference angle. So this angle right here. So that means it would be 180 minus 135. So how much is that? So borrow, so this is going to be a 5, and then 7 minus 3, that's going to be 4. So it's 45 degrees. So I really have that this is 45 degrees. And then I could make a right triangle using the x-axis. And if this is 45 degrees, this is 45 degrees. And so it turns into this one right here. So the sides are going to be 1, 1, and the hypotenuse will be the square root of 2. So the sides are going to be 1 and 1 and square root of 2. Now, usually on a triangle, you just call this side 1, but because this is going to the left, this should actually be -1 right here. Okay, so then this is the point P, and the coordinates to get to it would be -1, 1. So the coordinates are -1, 1.